Welcome to the Goose One channel. I'm gonna keep it short. Deltarune Chapter 4 is coming out somewhere next year. That could be in 4 months from now, 12 months, or even longer than that. With the release of Chapters 3 and 4, I replayed the whole game, making notes at every chapter to detail my every thought. After I finished the new chapters, I also watched a lot of theory videos, making notes in that very same document. Point being, I've come up with a lot of theories and a lot of thoughts. And in the wait of Chapter 4, I will be sharing all of them across a series of videos. Now, as a forward, I have one thing I really want you to keep in mind. I might not believe every theory I talk about. Not in the sense that I 100% believe the things I say will 100% happen, at least. But every theory I mention will have elements that I truly do believe are important or will be important in some way. So even if you don't end up coming out of this video or any of the following videos believing this theory, at least consider some of what I mention or talk about. I believe there's real intended foreshadowing and symbolism in a lot of the game, and even if it's not direct or on the nose as I will make it sound, I believe it's all very important. And with that said, let me lay out the thesis for this essay. I believe that in one of the remaining chapters of Deltarune, Kris, Roaring Knight's lackey Dreamer, will be crucified in some way. Both of their hands will be constrained, forcing them to remove one of them in an effort to free themselves. Why do I believe this? Well, so I'm going to get to the most basic part of this theory first. Hands. I think this is one of the more established things that I'm bringing up for this theory, but for those uninitiated, I'm going to take a few points from this video on screen, just to establish the hands point. What's the hands point, you might ask? It's this. Based on a bunch of foreshadowing and clues, there's a strongly and widely believed theory that somewhere in the following chapters, Kris will lose one of their hands. One of these pieces is the vision we see through the shadow crystal. If we use a shadow crystal in a variety of places, we will see visions of, well, we're not exactly sure what we see. We see warped versions of what is there before us in reality. Some think that what we see through the crystal is the future, the prophecy. Others believe they're visions of the weird root, based on things like Susie's cold behavior in her vision, or this Noel moment. I don't think these specifics matter for this theory, however. Still, we're gonna go with the assumption that the crystals show the future instead of weird root consequences or the real world. So, why do these crystals matter? What's important here? One simple reason. This vision. This is, I think, one of the main factors behind this common belief of Kris losing their hand in the future. It's been in the game since, I'm pretty sure, Chapter 1, and it points at something pretty damn clear. And this belief was strengthened even further with the releases of Chapter 3 and 4, with both the blue gotcha machine scene in Chapter 3 and Noel and Susie's conversation about the Blood Crushers movie where the protagonist loses their hand in Chapter 4. And finally, this is something I've been tossing around in my own head. I don't know if anyone else thinks this. I have something to say about this scene at the end of Chapter 4. I don't know how to phrase it, but Susie's bloody hand, leaving a bloody handprint on Rousey's face, seems intentional. I don't know if this specifically points at Kris' hand theory, but I do think it's a very important piece of foreshadowing. Seems wrong, but an important motif being set up that I'm not seeing a lot of people really talk about. Don't be surprised if, by the end of the game, someone else will touch Rousey's face and leave behind a bloody handprint. And with all that evidence, I think at the very least, this thing of Kris losing a hand is very possible and maybe unavoidable. But that's not exactly the thing I'm here to prove. It's more so important groundwork for the further theorizing we're going to do here. See, while Kris losing a hand is pretty much agreed on in the community at this point, with some outliers, the reason why or the context of this happening is still being hotly debated. And this makes sense. We don't exactly have all the information yet. Or that's what we think. See, I want to call back to this video I've been citing. There are a few pieces of evidence that Fruity Shade, the creator of the video, brings up that I believe are important, but not in the context he uses them. The first is the motif of Kris' incessant hand-washing habits. I'll let Fruity explain this one.
One of the more relevant moments that will get brought up again is Kris' connections to washing their hands. Rudy takes notice if you continuously wash your hands in the sink in his hospital room, and Kris used the excuse of washing their hands to get away with escaping the house at the end of Chapter 2.
I believe this motif is important, very important actually, but not in the way Fruity or the community at large thinks it is. See, I think there's an important distinction to be made between foreshadowing to Kris losing a hand and other hand-related motifs that aren't exactly part of the losing a hand thing. I think some of these motifs point at something very clearly unrelated or something also related to something else. Now, before chapter 4, I could see one thinking that the incessant hand washing is pointing at Kris losing a hand. But when we get to that chapter 4 egg room, I think the point of the hand washing motif becomes so much clearer.
Chapter 4's egg room delves into this deeper, while also integrating the hand theming into it. This is the most unnerving egg room by far. This area continues the hand washing motif found in Rudy's hospital room and in chapter 2's ending. Essentially, Kris has an art therapy session with the mysterious egg person, and then attempts to wash the graphite off of their hands. However, there is one gray crease that will never go away no matter how much you wash it.
There's a very clear theme, very clear motif going on in this scene. Let's think about this. There's this prevailing sense, especially in the new chapters, that something happened in Kris's past before the game. Something they want to forget, block out of their memory. Something that happened to them, or in my opinion, something they did. And that's why Kris is here, in this egg room, a flashback to some moment in art therapy. A moment where they tried to draw what happened and couldn't. And when their hands got dirty from that act, when they tried to wash them, they couldn't wash it all away, to wash their hands clean of past sin. And that brings us to the final important motif, the last piece of evidence that brings it all together into this beautiful Krissifixion theory. There's another point Fruity brings up, a piece of evidence almost unanimous in the Deltarune community, a certain character design choice that we first noticed as a community in the former royal scientist Wing Gaster. I mean WD Gaster, Wing Ding Gaster, whatever. These circles on Gaster's hands, or the men we believe to be Gaster, have long been interpreted by fans as holes, gaps in the palms of his hand, appearing so in pretty much every piece of Gaster artwork you can find. And while this was obviously fanon for a while due to the fact that we don't know if Mystery Man is even Gaster, and we might have been interpreting the holes wrong, with the return of this motif in the Roaring Knights design, this seems to become a really strong piece of evidence, pointing at something. But what exactly? There's this old Nightmind video, one of his first videos actually, about one of the best internet horror series of all time, Marble fucking Hornets. It's one of my favorite videos on the website, and I learned a lot from it, both in creating videos myself, and a fact that's especially relevant to this video. I'll let Nick explain.
Remember the appearance of the Sigma symbol in some of To The Ark's videos and how it might have meant stigmata instead? During behind-the-scenes footage from the Marble Hornets DVD set, Troy and Joseph admit that the symbol did, in fact, stand for stigmata. Wounds on the body reminiscent of injuries suffered by Jesus Christ, to the footage of Alex bleeding from the head. We already know what To The Ark was trying to say about the big secret behind this, but why also mention stigmata? Look at the way Alex is bleeding, the top of the hairline, beneath the hair, running in a circle around his head and trickling down. Unless he stabbed himself a few times in a pattern on purpose, there's no reason for him to have a wound like this. Unless he was trying to imitate Jesus Christ when the crown of thorns was placed on his head before crucifixion, making him bleed from the temple and down his face in a round pattern.
The stigmata, the circular wounds in the Messiah's hands, the aftermath of crucifixion, of the erasure of all sin. Though in Kris' situation, I suppose the blood is squarely on their hands. And that's where it all comes together. Here's how I see it happening. There is sin in Kris's past, something they've been trying to outrun, to forget, to erase from their memory, but they can't. They can't wash it all away. The stain on their hands won't be cleansed. And then it happens. Some moment arises, and Kris is forced to make a self-sacrifice. Maybe to save Susie and Rousey, or maybe all of Hometown, maybe the whole world. They're crucified. They believe that with this self-sacrifice, this Krissifixion, they are absolved of their sin, or on track to, at least. But self-flagellation, suicidal ideation, it helps no one. They can't be there for their friends when they sacrifice themselves. It's not the way, and they realize this too, or we make them realize in some way. So with their hands nailed to the cross, they're forced to make one more sacrifice, to remove either one or both of their hands, to free themselves and forge a new path ahead and truly be there for their friends. Or something like that. The fact of the matter is, I don't have enough evidence to tell you exactly how the story will end, or how Kris's story even ends. What I do have is a lot of evidence that points in one direction, to a self-imposed Messiah complex, a sin desperate to be cleansed. And on top of that, stigmata symbolism that's only getting stronger as time goes on. A piece of symbolism that I think will end up being incredibly important is very much overlooked at the moment. And that's all I've got for you today, at least. I think in essence, the main thing I really wanted to accomplish in this video was bringing that stigmata symbolism to the forefront of discussion and linking it to Kris's want to wash away their past sin. I believe there's something very strong hidden in there, and even though I don't believe they will literally get crucified, I do believe that they will make some kind of sacrifice that ends up with them losing a hand. I truly do believe this. And if you take anything out of this video, it's to look deeper into that part. So with that said, I'm about ready to take my leave. If you like this video, consider checking out the rest of the channel, maybe even subscribing, because I have a whole lot more to say about Deltarune that's coming soon. And it won't all fit into one video, so I'll see you guys in the next one.